I'd like to thank Georgia and Minka for inviting me to read tonight. Some years ago, I gave my daughter a silver dollar for her birthday, and I told her it comes with a story. So I told her the story, and she said, write that down. So I did. Then I read it to the senior girls in my advisory before they went off to college. Then I read it to the girls in my classes before they went off on spring break. And the message, to me anyway, is quite clear. That there is some evil in this world that is unique only to men. This is called A Silver Dollar for Jenny. It was a late, hot summer night in Greenwich Village in June of 1978. I was bartending at a dive bar called the Valley Bay Pub on Christopher Street, not far from the Hudson River. The streets were crowded with drunken revelers, and the bar was packed with rowdy drinkers. There was an edginess to the place like it was the Wild West. I was the only bartender, and I was very busy, racing back and forth, pouring drinks. I noticed a young woman, probably in her early 20s, sitting next to a guy about twice her age. She had her elbows on the bar, and she's holding her head in her hands while he was leaning in very close, whispering to her. As I walked by, carrying drinks or money, I overheard her say in a slurred, very weary voice, "No, I gotta go. I gotta get back to Jersey." The guy next to her was a scary-looking white guy. He looked like he had just been thrown out of the Hells Angels for bad behavior. Not tall, but solid and muscular. I remember he had a nasty scowl and an ugly scar on his face. He kept talking to her in a low voice, and it sounded from the snippets of their conversation that something was very wrong. This guy was clearly going to do her no good, and she was very high on something other than booze and seemed completely helpless. At one point, I looked over, and they were leaving together. I walked very quickly out from behind the bar, and I caught up to them just as they were out on the sidewalk. I got in between them. I put my hand on her back and gently pushed her away from the guy. I said to her while pointing across the street, "The PATH train to Jersey is 1 block that way. Now go." I'll never forget the look she gave me. She was scared. Her eyes were wide open, her lips parted, and she nodded her head vigorously several times in what seemed to be part gratitude and part relief. Then I pushed her again, guiding her off the sidewalk and onto the street. I watched her hurry away, and as I turned around, the guy, who was furious, looked at me while opening up this big knife and said, "I'm going to cut your throat." I froze for a split second, then said, "You don't want to do that," and walked slowly back inside. Maybe not the smartest response, but I didn't really have time to think. I had to walk the length of the room, which seemed to be a very long way. It was the longest walk of my life. And the whole time, I'm praying he wouldn't stab me in the back. When I finally got back behind the bar and looked around, and he was gone. Drunks were howling for more drinks, and while I was racing around, I noticed a few coins next to the empty glasses where they had been sitting, one of which turned out to be a very old silver dollar that the guy had accidentally left behind. I kept that coin for 43 years. And whenever I looked at it, I was reminded of the terror on that girl's face and how relieved she was to get away from that guy. Then one day, I took it out, I bought some silver polish, I shined it all up, and I gave it to my smart, beautiful, kind, and generous daughter, Jenny, who I love very much. Thank you.